Greetings people, it's Jared here, Wolfgang 1, back to do another Transformers review. So, following on from last week's review, which was G1 Rodimus Prime, I wanted to delve back into a figure that I've not reviewed for quite some time, which was the whole point of sort of starting my whole review process again with a new playlist. So I thought I'd take a look at a figure that I've not done for maybe about a decade, somewhere around those lines. A figure that I've always been very, very enamoured with, and I'm just showing off basically because I've got him complete in all his original glory. So we're going to take a look today at Generation 1 Soundwave. Okay, much like my G1 Optimus Prime review, can we just take a moment, ladies and gentlemen, just to actually just bask in what we're looking at here and just take in how amazingly, incredibly awesome this is. This guy is an original from either 84 or 85. About a couple of years ago, they did actually reissue Soundwave in the original, like the official reissue in like a reproduction, like sort of like proper G1 packaging and that, which actually is quite rare when you think of like sort of G1 reissues at all. But this guy's an original. I got this guy probably getting on for about 9-10 years ago now at one of the Transformers conventions, and he cost me about 8-9 years ago, something like that. He cost me 80 quid back then, complete. And it was one of those ones that I didn't question. I said to the guy, I picked up the box and went, "Oh, how much is this?" And he went, 80. I went, "Yeah, all right, there's the money." I didn't even question it. Just like, no idea what the toy was like on the inside, whether it was loose, whether it was fucked, whether anything. I just went, there's the money. I had Soundwave as a kid. I can't remember if I got him as a swap with a kid at school, or if I found him at a car boot sale or something like that. But I never had Soundwave with his box and everything like that. So, ladies and gentlemen, as you can imagine, this for me is all types of amazing. So the box has seen slightly better days. This is mostly down to like sort of moving and sort of thing. Like every time I move, the boxes take a little bit more damage. This side here got ripped, so I've had to tape that down just there. You've got the obligatory incredible G1 battle scene on the back, and it comes with two, as you can see, two tech specs, which with a tech spec decoder just here, I could go, oh yeah, look at that, that's his stats, and that's his stats right there. Because this was actually the gimmick with Transformers being two toys in one, this actually had two toys in one box, so it's essentially four toys. And he comes with one of his micro cassettes, Buzzsaw, which the other one is, of course, as we all know, the more fan favourite Laserbeak. So Buzzsaw had like sort of gold wings, and Laserbeak had like sort of red trim, just like sort of around here on his shoulders and things like that. And of course, you know, being a 1984 first generation Transformer, you'd have thought, first wave Transformer, you'd have thought that really the articulation on this guy would be severely limited. But you can actually get him in this pose here. Not so much the tilt of the head, but I mean, you can do all this because of the way the transformation works with all this. His legs do flip in and out. You know, he hyperextends at the knee and things like that. But there is actually an incredible range of movement for a toy that came out at a time when actually articulation was as limited as it was. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is the box. This is all sorts of fucking beautiful, despite the fact that the box is slightly damaged. I fucking love this. This is for me, this is partly what being a collector is all about. You know, I've been trying to restore a lot of my G1s with like boxes and that, like as you saw with last week's Rodimus Prime, and then obviously the week before with Grapple and sort of thing like that, even with Hound's box. So this is what I'm sort of going for. If I could get as many back into this condition as possible, then I would die a very, very happy Wolfgang 1. So what we're going to do is we're going to get this fucker and little fucker out of the box, and we're going to take a look at the accessories and then move on into the figure itself. Just one more view there. Just one more view. Yeah, brilliant. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so here is Soundwave and Buzzsaw in their alternate mode. Soundwave transformed into a cassette player, which I guess was the pinnacle of technology at the time. And obviously, Buzzsaw transforms into a micro cassette. Before I get on into these guys, I'm just going to show you some of the things it came with. I forgot to mention about the box. Sorry. You can see here, original polystyrene insert, which, you know, that's just tops it for me. It really does. So, accessories and shit. So, He came with one tech spec decoder, as all the G1s did, well, at least the first couple of ways anyway. He also came with, let's bring this shit up, the good old 84 product sheet. As you can see, he's down there at the bottom with Buzzsaw, and there's the rest of the Transformers that were available that year. Okay, let's put that there. He came with one instruction booklet. Now, this instruction booklet is in incredibly good condition. I'm actually very, very surprised by that, but yeah, that's his instructions, where to place the stickers and all that sort of stuff. He came with three. I've got all these, but they're somewhere else at the moment. He came with three of these sort of like missile things that plug into his gun and his shoulder launcher and that. But it was only ever the gun that really utilised these. Let's get that. So yeah, he came with three of those. He came with two of these little shoulder-mounted laser cannon thruster pack things, which fit onto Buzzsaw in his Condor mode, his robot mode. So two of those, left and right. He came with the back of his battery pack, because you see the thing, little attentions to detail like that. The Masterpiece version didn't have this, and I love the Masterpiece version, and I will review that at some point. But the Masterpiece version didn't even have a battery cover thing, which I thought was a bit of a wasted opportunity there. He came with this, which is his shoulder-mounted missile launcher. In fact, do you know what? I could probably do with replacing the stickers on that at some point, but I never really bothered because the rest of them seem to be in pretty good condition. So that's his shoulder-mounted rocket launcher, and then he comes with this, which basically, if you look at them both like this, they will store in his backpack in alt mode as batteries, which I think is fantastic. Batteries for the cassette player. This one, on the other hand, extends just like that, just like pull it apart, and then you add this little section here that I mentioned earlier into that hole, and that becomes Soundwave's primary weapon in robot mode. And this little button just here will allow you to detach that without too much trouble. Just like that. No spring-loaded mechanism, because children in the West could not be trusted not to take their own eyes out with these sort of things, apparently. But yeah, so that's Soundwave's primary weapon right there. Okay. So now we move on to Soundwave himself, right? And what I'll do is I'll just show you the gimmick for the batteries. So on the back, just here, is where you would store these particular pieces. There's a little groove just here to allow for these nubs to fit in. You've got to put them in a particular way. There we are. Just like that, and then close that up, and damn, there we are. So on the back it says Takara Company Limited 7483 Japan. There we are. And that is Soundwave in his alt mode. Things of note and interest, he's got a little volume slide control thing here, which does actually turn. Just like that, little attention to detail. He's got a little slider thing just here. I guess there's a power on off button. That's very fucking stiff. And then the best thing about this is this little button just here. So you've got your fake play buttons and everything like that, and your stop and record, fast forward and rewinds just down the bottom. But the best part of all this is this little button on the top just here. Just hit that, and the fucking tape deck opens up. It used to spring open like ba-ding, like that, and then it goes about as far as there now, because this thing is almost as fucking ancient as I am. So it used to go ba-ding, like that, probably without the sound effect, to be fair, but there we are. And then you take Buzzsaw in his or any of the tapes actually, Ravage, Rumble, Frenzy, Laserbeak, and some of the later generation ones going all the way up to I think 86. The cassette tape will fit in his chest like that. Lock the chest up, and he holds a fucking cassette, ladies and gentlemen. He holds a cassette. How cool is that? It's cool. Now, the Masterpiece version, you can hold two cassettes. And when they reissued and retooled this guy as Sound Blaster, they hollowed out the cavity and put a little bit of extra plastic, like filled this part out a little bit more, so you could actually hold two cassettes, which is even better. But doing like that,
and out flies the cassette. Okay, so let's take a look at the cassette. Let's put Soundwave to one side for one moment. Whew. Not a lot to speak of, really. I always loved the transformations for these guys. The stickers, again, on this side, sort of showing their age a little bit, but the ones on this side are actually very, very, very in very good condition. I put a little Decepticon symbol just on the top of what will eventually be his head. And sadly, as quite a lot of the Decepticons were, it requires a tiny amount of parts forming. I say a tiny amount. The fucking Seekers were notorious for parts forming. But in terms of this guy, yeah, micro cassette looking pretty good. I could probably do with replacing these ones just to tighten up and smarten up the cassette mode a little bit, because that is sadly showing its age, although still in remarkable condition overall for its age. So to transform this guy, because there's really not a lot to say about a micro cassette mode, really, is there? I mean, if you think about alt modes, I think Soundwave and these cassettes out of all the first year Decepticons and that kind of came up a bit short. I mean, right, in the '84 cartoon you had the Seekers, the Decepticons, the Constructicons, and they all had their like sort of alt modes, and they combine in some cases, and blah blah blah. Soundwave turns into a fucking cassette player, which you would think would be a bit of a drawback on the battlefield, really, because you're not going anywhere, are you? This guy on the other, yeah, same problem. So transformation. So what we want to do is we want to pull down these two sections just here, like that. Okay. Actually, you probably want to take the wings first. Yeah, you wouldn't think transforming the micro cassette would be so difficult, would you? Let's start again. Let's put those fuckers back down. Right. Let's start by taking these two sections just here and folding them out to the sides. Okay. The wings on this are stiff as fuck, which is pretty cool, but a little bit worrying at the same time. Now, from there, you actually free up enough space to pull down these two sections that I tried doing just now. So left and right, and they will form the bird's legs. Okay, so you got that. And then pull out this little tab just here, like that. That'll be the head and the neck. And then flip it up a little bit, just like that. So you've got a little bit of definition just there, like, so you can see his neck, you can see his head, his little gold eyes and everything like that. And then finally, stick these left and right corresponding blaster thruster things just there. 1 and 2. Okay, now they're in pretty good condition. Actually, the chrome, there's not too much chrome wear on those. Sometimes they do sit at a bit of a jaunty angle. Again, I guess because of the age of the actual figure itself. But that would have been Buzzsaw, and Laserbeak had exactly the same transformation, exactly the same accessories, just a slightly different colour scheme on his shoulders and his wings. But ladies and gentlemen, there's Buzzsaw, and I think, you know, the idea of turning a cassette into a bird is fucking mental as fuck, but I really, really, really do quite like that. He's in very, very good condition for his age. A bit of chrome wear, sure, why not? Why, he might as well have a bit of chrome wear. He's nearly 40 years old, for God's sake. 38 years old or whatever it is. I think he's deserved that at the very least. So yeah, that is Buzzsaw in his condom mode. So yeah, not a lot else to say about him really, as he's a character, but he's more of an accessory to the main character, if you will. So let's set Buzzsaw off to one side, and let's talk about this bad boy. So Soundwave, the Decepticon communications officer, fiercely loyal to Megatron. Apparently can hear a pin drop on a gnat's bollock or something like that. He's got very, very good hearing, can hear multiple frequencies, all that sort of thing. And being a 1984 model, it got a bit of die casting the feed just here. I'm not sure if he's got die cast anywhere else. Actually, probably not, apart from the hip pins and things like that. But having a little bit of die cast metal in them actually added a little bit of weight to them. They kind of made them feel a little bit more tangible, a little bit more real, if that makes any kind of sense. And, you know, his alt mode does limit him somewhat, in the sense that he's not going to be able to get off a battlefield very well unless he runs like fuck or flies off. This sort of, you know, does sort of limit him, but it's still awesome. It's it's difficult to describe past that word, really. This was one of the imported Takara products that became part of the 84 line. So I think this came from a line called Microman, which is kind of fitting, really. A micro cassette player that turns into a little robot. So yeah, Microman. Yeah, just take that in. Just take that in. These colours are still good. A lot of these stickers are actually still, as I said, really good condition, which is why I haven't really bothered replacing them. I always found the positioning of these two stickers here really quite weird, and kind of feels like they're not supposed to be there. These red ones on the side, I kind of feel like they should have gone somewhere else. But all the official pictures I've ever seen have stated categorically that they go here. Why? It doesn't actually add anything to the alt mode or the robot mode whatsoever. They're just kind of there, which is are they supposed to be speakers? I don't know. I kind of thought these little things up here were supposed to be speakers. But whatever. Let's transform Soundwave, shall we? Because I'm rambling bullshit now. So let's transform Soundwave. Let's get his backpack off. Get those out. And stick that back on. Okay. Let's get these weapons off to one side. And Soundwave is one of the few characters really whose animation model transformation kind of very, very closely resembled his alt mode transformation, which I think is awesome. So let's start by pulling it down out to the sides, these two sections on either side. Okay, one like that and one like that. It's a very, very simple transformation. One I'm not even I can fuck up really. And then once we've gotten to that stage, we want to bend these sections down even further to the point where he's standing on those. These are very... Jesus, these pins are tight. Okay, so we've got that. And then we're going to rotate these sections around 90 degrees to the front. The whole section right there for the legs. And then these two metal tabs down the bottom, which I mentioned earlier, will form his feet. Always get a nice little ching like that when you pull them down, which is awesome. And that is his legs done. Okay, so let's bring this just up a little bit. Then, for the arms, we want to put... I mean, the arms are like pretty much right there. You just want to flip them around on this hinge here and round to the front. Do the same on the other side. And then these two tabs, one tab either side, put it down, and that will reveal his hands. And then always the money shot with Soundwave. Southend. Yeah, would have been fantastic if there'd been a Decepticon called Southend who was just an absolute cunt in everything he did, even more so than any other Decepticons. Right? Yeah. So from there, this little thing just here, you want to pull this up through his head, and then spin it around all the way like that. And then that right there is I've done it again. Soundwave in his basic robot mode. Okay. Then you just want to add his accessories and things like that. Before I add his accessories, I just want to take a moment just to again bask in the glory that is this figure. And if in alt mode he's absolutely fine. In robot mode he's awesome, but mine is loose. You can hear it rattling. You can see it moving. He's he is very, very loose. But do you know what? He stands up very well. I can position him in a way that in fact, let's do that. Just give him his shoulder thing like that. Let's do the primary weapon. Okay. Stick that in his hand, just like that. Holds the gun very well. And then let's just move his leg like that. So in terms of articulation, because of the transformation, look at what you can do with him. Just like that. And there is Soundwave, ladies and gentlemen. His colours are fantastic. Still bright after all this time. The chrome hasn't really faded at all. His paint hasn't faded at all, which is great. Some of the stickers are starting to peel a little bit, just like the ones on his knees. The ones on his wrists are a little dodgy, but the ones on his shoulders are still great. I mean, you can see how loose his head wants to naturally tip back like that because that joint is very weak. I have seen examples of Southend. Fuck off. I've seen examples of Soundwave in the past where because that's on a ball joint, like a sort of a twist joint, where it's actually sheared off just here. And once that plastic is sheared off and it's a clean break, that's it, you're done. Let's just get a close up, really, if I can, on what an absolutely beautiful head sculpt that is, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get that in a little bit tighter. That is absolutely stunning. And there is something to be said for Soundwave's head being sort of very, very reminiscent of the Decepticon logo that sits on his chest. It does look like it formed the basis for it. Very, very similar indeed. Great paintwork on the face to differentiate the face mask from the head crest, and like sort of the eyes painted yellow and everything like that. There's a lot of attention to detail here, which you don't necessarily immediately take in. It's only when you actually start looking at it and you go, actually, the sculpt detail in the plastic. I mean, let's look at the arms there. It's simple, but it's effective. The actual amount of sculpting detail actually in the head crest itself, it's yeah, this is a fantastic toy. It was a fantastic toy 38 years ago when it was first released. It's a fantastic toy 38 years later, sitting in my collection and slowly gathering dust and rotting away to all fuck. But ladies and gentlemen, this toy is iconic. It's almost as iconic. I would say every bit as iconic actually as Starscream, Prime, Megatron, Grimlock, Bumblebee, whatever. A design which has carried over so many different iterations over the course of the last sort of 38 years, whatever. Animated took massive design cues from it. Transformers Prime actually was a massive departure. But there's always some kind of telling reference to Soundwave, either with the like sort of the gold or the yellow around the chest cavity, or his function, or the way that his head's designed in like sort of certain iterations. And that he's one of those that they always take specific design cues from, and especially in the recent Siege trilogy toy line, which was a massive G1 throwback anyway. They picked up on all the appropriate design cues just from this original design. And I know a lot of people get pissed off with G1 and everything like that, but at the same time, it was doing it right 38 years ago, so that's probably why they keep going back to it for the nostalgia value, because there are so many iconic elements in this design here that you go, that's who that is. So yeah, I'm not surprised they do so many references to G1 and that, because there was a lot of design cues back then which have just carried over decade after decade, iteration after iteration. And Soundwave is no different in that respect. So yeah, thoughts all in all, I think he's fucking fantastic. I always did. The one that I had as a kid had no tape deck cover and that, but I still loved him. He was still awesome. And for me, he's in pretty good condition. He could be in better condition, but at the same time, considering his age, I'm not surprised. For me, 80 quid was worth every single penny. Absolutely every single penny. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching this review of G1 Soundwave. This is J.R. Gavin Barry, also known as Wolfgang1, saying I'll be back at some point soon with other reviews and shit like that, just to keep you all interested. Thank you very much for watching. I do appreciate your comments, your thoughts, your views, and all the stuff that goes in between. So until we see each other again next time, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching, and take care.